everyone. I'm Ashley Berry, and today we're spotlighting Sonoro Gold Corp, listed on the TSXV as SGO, over the counter in the United States as SMOFF, and the Frankfurt Exchange as 23SP. This is a company moving rapidly toward potential gold production at its flagship Cerro Caliche Project in Mexico, and with gold holding above $4,000 per ounce, and Sonoro now controlling 100% of the asset. This is a story investors are watching closely. Joining us is President and CEO Kenneth MacLeod. Ken, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Once again, it's always great to chat with you. And it's been a long time since we last talked, but I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Absolutely. It has been entirely too long, and I'm so glad to have you here at the end of the year. And as I understand, you are nearing production at Cerro Caliche after years of development, which we've spoken about. So for investors new to the story, what would you say makes this such a compelling asset at today's record gold prices?
I think the most compelling reason for investing in Sonora today is we're in the threshold of graduating from an advanced exploration company to a development company, and therefore on to being a production company. And the time frame is very short. We fully anticipate right now, we've gone through a very turbulent few years in Mexico because of government policies that didn't enable us to get our environmental impact statement approval in the past couple of years. But now we're starting to see a sea change occurring in Mexico. And by way of example, there have been 2 open pit mining permits granted in Mexico in the past 3 weeks. So that's a sign that the tide has turned, that the Mexican government is now embracing the potential for more open pit mines. And we're one of the projects right now that are in the shortlist for final approval. Now, what does that mean? So let's assume that we're able to secure the approval for our environmental impact statement, or MIA, as it's known in Mexico. And let's assume that that occurs in the latter part of Q1 of 2026. Then that will enable us then to secure the production financing, to raise the capital to build the mine. And it's not a lengthy process at all. We're looking at anything from 6 months to 12 months to get into actual production phase after we receive the MIA approval. So therein lies the opportunity for an astute investor today to look at Sonoro and its valuation today in the marketplace, and it's trading at around, in Canadian dollars, about 22 cents. Mm-hmm. Will that remain at 22 cents once Sonora goes into production? I would hasten to say no. They're going to see an increase in the valuation of the shares. And that will be simply on the basis of the resource that we currently have in Sonora. But keep in mind as well, one of our key initiatives in Sonora was to get into production at the rate that we're forecasting in the most recent PEA, preliminary economic assessment, but build up from there, keep on drilling, because we've only drilled less than 30% of the known mineralized resources on the property. And therefore, the remaining 70% we feel is heavily mineralized. So we should be able to increase the size of the resource quite dramatically, therefore extending the life of mine, increasing the daily rate of production. And all in all, it should favor the investors in Sonora over the coming years. And you should be able to see over the next 3 to 5 years a substantial increase in the value of the project itself. And that should translate into increased value in the market as well.
It certainly sounds like it. And, you know, Ken, I know how incredibly determined you have been with your work here at Sonoro Gold. So I certainly commend that. And it really sounds like some incredible updates that you're sharing today. Speaking of the PEA, it was based on much lower gold prices, but you've since completed multiple oversubscribed financings. And so now with the updated PEA and environmental permitting underway, what would you say are the key milestones investors should expect, and maybe offer a little bit on the timeline if you could? Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Well, the key milestones there's 2 major ones that are quite imminent at this point in time. One, of course, is the environmental impact statement approval. And we have submitted the initial filing in April of 2022. Now, the government during that time was not receptive to open pit mining, period. In fact, it wasn't receptive to mining. But since President Sheinbaum came into power on October of 2024, there's been a sea change in the attitude of the government. Over 200 projects have been approved in the mining sector since she came into power, especially since February of 2025. And like I mentioned recently, there's been 2 new open pit mining permits granted as well for construction. This is really good news for Sonoro. And like I said, we fully expect that by the end of Q1, we should be in a position to receive that approval on our environmental impact statement. The second one is an updated PEA. And you mentioned that the original PEA dated August of 2023 was performed at a time when gold was substantially less than it is today. In fact, the authors of the report used $1,800 gold as the base case. And at $1,800 gold, you still are ending up with a very, very robust performance for the economics of the project. And in the order of $97 million approximately for the net present value. And as obviously, as the price of gold goes up, that net present value increases exponentially as well. So we are now in a position where gold is trading over $4,000. And of course, the report writers from the 43-101 are pretty, they treat the figures with a great degree of conservatism. And so you're going to see probably less than $3,000 or somewhere around $3,000 for the financial valuation of the project at this point in time. And at $3,000, yeah, guess what happens, Ashley, is you're freeing up gold that at $1,800 was deemed to be uneconomic because the cutoff grade at that time was 0.2 grams. Now with gold at say, let's take $3,000, you're able to then take what was formerly destined for the waste dump, and you're putting it through the crusher, and you're being able to get the gold out of it, even though it's a lower grade, because the cutoff now will be substantially less than 0.2 grams. And so it makes for, without even putting a drill bit on the property right now, we should be able to see an increase in the overall amount of gold. The grade will be diminished slightly as a result of the fact that you're using lower grade. But as long as it's economically viable, we will be able to mine it. So that's step one. Step two, of course, is I'm very, very keen on getting back into the drilling phase again. Even before we start construction, I'd like to get into the drilling phase because I know we can increase the value. We have so many targets on the property that are just crying to be drilled. And it's a combination of expansion, yes, like absolutely, begging to be drilled. And it's a combination of infill drilling to convert inferred resources into indicated resource and maybe even a measured resource. And also there's so many areas on the property, so many vein structures that we've done some initial drilling, like scout drilling, to determine whether they're mineralized with good results. And these now should be expanded upon so that we can convert these areas, especially in the northern part of the property, into productive zones, into areas where we can actually demonstrate that there's a resource in these areas as well. So I'm happy to note at this point in time that we anticipate a very healthy and very robust drilling program as we go through the construction phase as well. And once we're in production, we will use revenue to increase the size of the project further.
Certainly sounds like it. Now, we're talking about Cerro Caliche, correct? And then there's the other project, the San Marcial Project. Yes?
Yeah, the San Marcial Project has been sort of the orphan for the past 5 years or more. And it was one of the earlier projects that we secured when I first started with Sonoro.
Yep.
And this was located, not far from the Cerro Caliche property as a crow flies, so only about 30 miles or 50 kilometers. But as the roads go, it takes about an hour to get there. But it has great potential. We believe it has similar kind of potential to the Cerro Caliche project. It has not been drilled yet. but there were two old mines, historic mines on the San Marcial property. So we know that the area surrounding the old mines is heavily mineralized. And we also know that over 2 kilometers of strike length is mineralized. So once again, that is another target for us to drill in 2026. And we've established a drilling program to accommodate that and be able to take, the idea is to take the San Marcial project and spin it off into its own subsidiary, which is still owned by Sonoro. And then when the time comes that we will then list it on the stock exchange and declare a dividend to the existing shareholders of Sonoro, so they will own shares in this brand new subsidiary, and that on the same proportion as they own Sonoro shares. And then we're there, that gives them two distinct ways of getting a return on their investment. One of the things that I like about the spinning off the San Marcial project is that it will be self-sustaining as far as capital is concerned. We don't have to rely on Sonoro to keep feeding funding to San Marcial, because it'll be able to stand on its own 2 feet and be able to raise capital and develop the project on its own merits. So that gives their shareholders a double hit as far as them being able to get a return on investment. So I think it'll happen sometime in 2026. I can't give you an exact date, but I would say the middle of 2026 is quite likely that that'll be about the time frame for us to actually complete the split into the two companies.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like sage strategic thinking there, obviously creating value for shareholders. So for those that are just learning about this story, or current shareholders, how would you, in maybe 3 short statements, say that Sonoro Gold is, because you also mentioned earlier that it's 22 cents plus right now, but just give it some time and you're really going to see a return. So maybe you could just give your elevator pitch for those watching.
I would say that there are quite a few elements that will ensure that Sonoro and our Cerro Caliche project are successful. First of all, we've assembled a team of experts, and they're both in the financial and in the technical aspects of our business to A, find the locations that are suitable for drilling, B, develop the drilling program and convert essentially infertile ground into very, very productive ground. And so that's what we have with Cerro Caliche. It's an excellent project in probably the finest undeveloped area of Mexico, reasonably undeveloped. We do have some producing mines surrounding us, but the potential for this region and district is significant. So we're in probably, like I mentioned, one of the finest districts for future development in Mexico. Thirdly, it's a really, really good resource. Starting off with currently just under 500,000 ounces, according to SRK's report in 2023. And we feel now that with the price of gold having gone higher, we'll be able to increase the size of the resource without additional drilling at this point in time. But of course, like I mentioned, 30% of the known mineralized resources on the property have been drilled. Let's get cracking on the other 70%, and who knows what the end result will be, but it'll be certainly significantly higher than what we have today. Then, as far as the price of gold is concerned, obviously you get conflicting opinions as to which direction gold is headed, but I think the general consensus right now from gold watchers is that we're looking at a higher price for gold. Maybe $5,000 is within the realm of reason. I don't have any opinion on that either way. I believe if it happens, great. But I also don't feel that we're going to be seeing $3,000 gold anytime in the distant future, in the near or distant future. So I think I'm happy with $4,000 gold as it stands today, and that should provide the shareholders with an excellent rate of return on their investment.
Certainly sounds like it, Ken. Great insights. What a time to be in the gold business. With 100% ownership secured, key permits now advancing, as you heard Ken say, an updated EPA on deck, potential spin out, as he mentioned, that could unlock additional value. Clearly, Sonoro Gold is positioning itself for a major 2026. So for those investors wanting to stay ahead of the curve, visit sonorogold.com. Again, listed on the TSXV as SGO and the OTCQB as SMOFF, and Frankfurt 23SP. This is certainly a company moving decisively toward production at exactly the right moment in the gold market. Ken MacLeod, thank you so much for joining us here on Stocks to Watch.
Thank you, Ashley. As always, it's a pleasure.